If by chance this is my grand finale, then bury me in Allegheny County.
This was an episode I was really hesitant to make because I just didn't want to do a bad job, but I'm sure you guys will hold me accountable in the comments if that's the case. This week marks the 10th anniversary of Mac Miller's Faces. This was actually Malcolm's 11th mixtape, if you can believe it, and it was later re-released as an album with a bonus track. This album is probably my most favourite project from Mac and really showcases his skills not only as a lyricist but as a producer too, crafting most of the tracks on Faces under his production alias Larry Fisherman. I scoured everywhere to find hints at his production process for this album so I could try to do the absolute best job possible for you guys, and I even made sure to find an unreleased Mac Miller vocal to sync up with the track so that we can get the entire picture at the episode's end, so do stick around. As always, the Frozen Project, tools mentioned and stems are available at the Patreon. So, starting off, you're going to want to grab some signature sounds. The organ was the first sound that I gravitated towards as it's used throughout Faces. Mac probably used the Nord with the organ preset, so I created a preset inside Serum. I'll also leave this at my Patreon too. We'll be adding some passing chords or harmonies with a Rhodes preset in a higher octave. Next up is the bass. Mac is playing a lot of live instruments on this record, so I'm going for a really live bass sound with a sign underneath just for the sub. Ample Sound make gorgeous instruments and Neural DSP powers a fantastic amp simulator. I have many videos on both of these devices, so check it out in the show notes. Speaking of Ample Sound, you'll also want a couple of electric guitar tones, maybe one for a cleaner tone and something more distorted for texture. Finally, we're going to have some really dirty drums, so choose your samples, one-shots or kit sounds very carefully. Now, before we get into composition and arrangement, it's worth noting that I based a lot of my reference material on the tracks from Faces that Mac produced on his own. So nothing from Earl Sweatshirt or Ninth Wonder this time around. If you listen to Malibu, Ave Maria, or Grand Finale, you'll hear a lot of commonalities. With this in mind, we're in the key of G minor, and we're starting off with the bass to give us a good anchor point. So with the bass, this is the kind of pattern that I've gone for, and as you'll see with most of the composition in this project, a lot of things are going to be unquantized. Normally just the first beat of the bars are going to be the things that are quantized. I'm keeping this bass playing really loose. This is what it sounds like. I really like the looseness of this bass sound because it's really going to give it that kind of like band feeling. The live bass processing is inside an instrument rack. I've used Ample Sound's Bass J alongside Morgan Amp Suite from Neural DSP to give us that more overdriven live sound. Without Neural DSP, it still sounds good, but it's not quite as dirty. Inside an instrument rack, you can couple things with the EQ3 and then use an operator for the sub. And as you can see, I'm using an EQ3 once again, but with just the lows, the mids and the highs turned off. So we're just getting this really pure sine tone. I'm also using my BetterHelp device, which you can find at the Patreon, just to pull out that bass sound in smaller speakers. Without it, it has a lot more weight behind it with that BetterHelp plugin. And then a little bit of EQ8 if you want to roll off the highs. I was kind of in two minds, so I turned this off. From here I added the Rhodes, so we've gone from those really low frequencies to our highest stuff. I'm just using the ePiano MK1 dirty preset inside Ableton with a little bit of Valhalla Vintage Verb and then my BetterHelp device once again with some EQ8 at the end just to roll off any of those lows. As mentioned, we're in G minor and this is our Rhodes. Just doing an inversion here. Making sure we roll those chords, they're still unquantized. nice and easy. Then we're going to couple that with the organ. As I mentioned, I made a Faces organ preset. Inside Serum, you can grab that from the Patreon. EQ8 and then RC20. This is the only thing that RC20 will be on, just for a little bit of character, some of that dusty distortion feel that we get throughout the Faces project. Here's my organ alongside the things we just heard. Really want it to feel like we're playing along with these instruments. Don't know how many times I can say that this is all unquantized. We also have a bridge section of this song, which we'll get to in just a little bit. So then we have the guitar. I've used a few guitar presets. We're mostly using Ample Sound Semi-Hollow on the Dream Come True preset alongside Morgan Amp Suite. Once again, the same preset as we've seen before with a little bit of EQ, and we're using the chorus ensemble. Let's come back to that automation in just a second. The first guitar is going to sound kind of like a telephone EQ. It pretty much just plays that. Little change here. And then stepping down. And then we do that loop once more. So what are we automating here? Well, we're automating a little bit of vibrato so we get this whammy effect. Let's really exaggerate that vibrato at this section so you could hear what it would sound like if it was turned all the way up. So you can kind of hear the rate there. And I'm just keeping this at max 20%. So we get just a little bit of wobble after we hear those initial chords. If you're at this video, you know the project, so you know it's really dusty, really dirty. So I wanted some distorted guitar really low in the mix. And the way that I ended up getting that was using Ample Sound and kind of sampling that instrument. If you use the right cluster of notes and velocities with Ample Sound, you can get some really cool pinch harmonics. So I resampled this little section. You kind of hear the feedback that it gets there. And then just to keep my CPU fresh, I'm getting rid of that track and resampling it on a new track, which gives us this. If we keep that really low in the mix and mix that with maybe our guitars and bass, we get this. So it's just a really cool way to get some nice gritty textures underneath. And then we need one final guitar, which is going to do some plucky stuff. You can see I've got better help once again, but no neural DSP, the EQ8, and then a line delay to make this guitar a little bit wider. And we're doing some pitch bendy stuff. So we go to our piano roll, choose envelopes, MIDI control, and pitch bend. This will look a little bit different in the Live 12 version of this project, which you can also grab at the Patreon. Once again, that's giving it a more band-focused kind of tone. I've also got these singular guitar hits, which I got from Splice, just to give me certain kind of distorted thwacks as well. I've resampled them all to G, and we start off with this sound. It's a little delayed distort. I probably could have made that myself, but I was getting a little bit lazy. We've got this reverbious distorted guitar here. And then we kind of have a synthy guitar swell underneath. And I'm reversing that so it can go back into itself. And that gives us this lovely kind of like tape swell sound as well. Oh, I should mention this video is sponsored by DistroKid. It's super easy to get your music on all of the streaming platforms with DistroKid, and with Playlister, it's easier than ever to get your music in front of real people. No pesky bots. You just select Playlister from the Get Heard Now tab, input your genre, and then scroll to find Playlister's information. See, here's my Lo-Fi Focus playlist. If you want to release your music with DistroKid and get 7% off your first year, plus support the show at no extra cost, use the link in the description. Now, let's get to the drums and see what it sounds like with Mac's voice. Don't go anywhere. All right, the exciting stuff, the drums. Now you can see at the top of the screen, it actually says Mac Miller 2 because I created one project prior to this and I really didn't do things justice. So it really deserved remaking the project again from scratch. And this time round, I used a collection of high quality drum samples or loops, and then one shots as well inside the drum rack. Let's start off with the gritty stuff. Faces has a really dark, gritty sound. So I wanted to take some kick drum samples, which I pitched down low and stretched out. They sound like this. But you want to make sure that you roll off the lows because our bass is going to sit there. After that, I'm mixing a kick and snare on the same track. Almost all of my drums are pitched down, so we've got this kind of like Griselda theme as well. If you're listening to Conway the Machine's new album this week, got some similarities there. And then we want some hi-hat stuff, which is also pitched down. We've got 2 open hi-hat samples here, and they just play this offbeat thing. And then we've got the closed hi-hats. Let's put those elements together so you can hear what it sounds like in context. I've always said that ghost notes tie drums together and make them feel like they're coming from a more similar space. So I found some ghost notes inside a longer loop on splice, chopped anything up that was kind of like a roll or a ghost note, and pitched that down to fit my kit as well. And then you want some higher stuff. So I had this longer sample, and I'm just getting rid of all of that kick snare action and keeping kind of the shakers and the higher frequencies. Now all that realism comes from the cymbal sound. There's so much cymbal noise inside Faces. So I've got this group called Cymbals, which I've rolled right off. And then it's got a collection of like cymbal hits, cymbal sweeps, and ride one shots that I've kind of arranged around the rhythms. Let's bring in some of the drums. Little sweep here. From there, we go to the bridge, which is really exciting. I found these fills that I've just sliced up inside Simpler, and they're sliced by transient, so I can really choose the fills I want. And I did something unique where I increased the fade over time so our snare doesn't get in the way of our actual sampled snare. And I decreased the transposition over time, so we get a drum fill that sounds like this. Now, how weird does that sound without the context of the drums? Let's bring in the drums and see how the bridge changes here. So that creates way more of a narrative to those drums now. How does the rest of the bridge change with that? Well, basically we're changing some of the chords with the organ. The organ becomes fuller and plays more legato, thicker chords. Super distorted sound this time round. The Rhodes is now playing the offbeat melody. And the bass is following those chords. And the guitar is going to do the same just to back up those textures too. And then we're back to the beginning. So before we get to bringing the vocal in, I just wanted to create an introduction. And some of the Faces tracks have this kind of like tape start introduction. So I've resampled the verse section of the track without some of the shakers and hi-hats. You want to go into that clip. You want to transpose that track from an octave lower up to its current key. And you want to make sure that you're increasing the tempo over time before you get to your drop as well. So that's going to give this sound. Maybe add some chimes, and then that's going to be the drop of your song. Of course, you can download this project over at the Patreon to dive deeper into things, but I'll also add that I've added a music group just for the vocals to sit on top of. The vocals are linked to a compressor. Anytime that the vocals come through, the music is ducked by just a dB or two with a little tiny scoop in the mids and the highs so that those vocals can come through a bit higher, as they are kind of unmixed, unreleased vocals. Let's see what everything sounds like in context. So there we have it, guys. I hope this video was helpful, and I really hope that I did Malcolm justice. Do let me know in the comments, as well as what you'd like to see in future episodes. Thank you as always for swinging by, and I'll catch you next time.
For better or for worse, I always try and keep it always as open and as honest as possible.